Welcome to Exiles, a Gospel of Mark podcast. We're coming to you from Grace Church in Erie, Pennsylvania, where we're taking what we learn about ancient truths and the person of Jesus into our everyday life. You can check out whoisgrace.com/Mark for the sermon and resources we're using for our conversation. Thanks for joining us today for season 5. Ooh, our final season.
We didn't get canceled yet.
No. In this section of Mark, the end is just the beginning. Let's pick up where we left off in this greatest of stories following Jesus through his final days in Jerusalem, learning alongside the disciples that his blood must be poured out for many and that the good news of his resurrection must be proclaimed to the whole world. So join us as we journey with Jesus to the cross and beyond in the Gospel of Mark.
2 thoughts. You should have tried doing that with one whole breath.
It's hard.
Because it was close.
Yeah.
And then I lost my other thought.
Okay.
Anyway, keep going.
Thanks for the critique. Appreciate it.
No, that wasn't.
No,
that,
I know. I'm totally joking.
You just started listening.
Hey,
that was me
everyone.
entertaining myself.
So
in my
we've been off for a couple months ish. Month? A month?
Yeah,
What's
month or so.
December did
What
feel
is
like a couple
time?
months.
What is time?
Is that the opening question?
No.
Should have been.
Opening question. Wow, you're just full of ideas today.
He
aren't
is. He's got a lot of
Fresh
things to
new
say.
year.
New shoulder.
New shoulder,
right.
new Steven.
you? New shoulder, new Steven. What is the best piece of feedback you've ever received? And introduce yourself for the new people. There might be people.
What?
That's deep.
That is a good question.
Thank you. Finally.
Say the best feedback.
Yeah. So I've thought about it. I'll go. My name is Danielle. I lead the programming department here at Grace. And the best piece of feedback I've ever received, someone told me, looked me straight in the eye and just said, self-deprecation cannot be a crutch for you for the rest of your life.
Wow.
And I was like, okay.
Okay.
So that started me on a big journey of I used to be so insecure, super just questioning myself on everything I ever did, just didn't feel good enough to do anything. And that, that's still rooted in there somewhere for sure, comes out, but I'm totally different person since that journey.
How long ago was that?
A long time ago.
Okay.
20 years maybe.
Yesterday.
Maybe 20 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was your, this is not a counseling
No, I
session.
love it.
but
Let's do
here we
this.
go.
Season 5, just break each other apart.
we know each other.
I mean, you did start it. You
No,
were
I
the kid.
did.
What was your initial response to that? Was it
Tears.
shock? It was tears.
Yeah, it was
okay.
tears for sure.
All right.
And just because
That doesn't apply to me.
no,
it's,
it wasn't.
Hit
No,
the nerve, though.
No,
Wasn't
because
like that?
I would take any feedback. I would
Right,
take
of
any
course,
negative
'cause that's
feedback
part
and
of
just
that,
yeah. It was more like an exposed feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't like defensiveness. It was just ugh, I can't believe this person sees me like this, and totally doesn't see any of the masking.
Wild.
Yeah.
That's good.
Okay, well,
So,
season
beat that.
5,
Season 5.
out with a bang. So I think
Out with
with
the
her
bang.
Diet Coke.
in with a bang, out with a bang. So I did. Let's see, on my second deployment, I'll try to make it layman's, but I did my first deployment in the Marines, and then thought, hey, I'm gonna do. This is the next role for me that would kind of track with, I guess, the career progression. But all of a sudden, through some circumstances that weren't up to me, I ended up in this kind of other role that I was kind of operating like, this is inferior, I'm above this isn't, and I'm going back to deploying to Japan again. I got buddies going to combat zones and so feeling a lot like this is a bunch of BS, and but I was leading my platoon of 30 Marines, but I was not doing a good job just with some of that. And we got there, we deployed. I was a total I'm trying to find the right word that's appropriate, but I was not a good person to be around or a good leader. And in any case, yeah, borderline toxic.
Okay.
Just because, for a variety of reasons, my CO, my boss, called me in and he sat me down, and he very lovingly, but at least for a Marine, but he didn't just stand me up and yell at me, but he just he laid into me and and I remember physically sitting in the chair slouching. He's even look at your posture right now. You have no
Sit up.
Oh.
But I remember sitting up and just having instant come to Jesus moment. Whoa, I have been acting like a total, and I was just immediately I'm sorry, sir. I apologize. This changes, and I walked out of there
Different.
the way I act reverberates far beyond my little sphere, and that's I just have a very vivid memory of that butt chewing and coming out of that. So
Wow, that's a good one. That's good.
Wow. Now I'm feeling more and more pressure
Wow.
So I have two that come to mind. One is super sharp. I've heard this throughout my life, but just that people appreciate that I can be a calming presence. Now there's a downfall to that people don't know what I'm actually thinking, or it's how I'm hard to read at times. But I don't overreact in tense situations. So there's that. And then I think a piece of advice that I was given, which hopefully is along the lines of what you guys were getting at as well, is so when I stepped into my role as a lead pastor back in the day, I mean, I was so young and I was so insecure about all of this. And I mean, I'm not ashamed to say it at this point, but I had a tendency of borrowing other people's sermons because I didn't feel like I actually had any authority to speak into situations.
Yeah.
So like early on, maybe within the first year, and one of my congregation members snuffed it. I wasn't doing anything secretively, but it was almost like he pulled me aside. He was like, God put you in this position and gave you a voice to speak. He doesn't want to hear so-and-so's voice. And in that moment, it was almost like that. I mean, it was that come to Jesus moment, but it was almost like speaking life into me.
Yeah.
So it's like, you didn't believe you had something to give, but God put you in this position to give what he put inside of you. And so it was like, oh, all right.
That's cool.
All right. So maybe I do have something to say.
That's good.
But yeah.
That's a good one.
So.
Did you introduce yourself?
Oh, I'm Steven, by the way. Yeah.
I'm Mike. I'm one of the pastors here at Grace. We're out of practice. We're taking a whole weird track here.
Next week will be better.
All right, so you can either go
Hi.
Not true.
go deep like we did, or
just
you
how you
can just
hook
go
'em.
totally
I think I have
surface.
like one of each.
Oh, great.
So, because I agree, I have like two that come to my mind. Hi, my name is Sarah.
Oh.
Hi, Sarah.
Hey.
Hi, Sarah.
One was I was told and empowered it's okay to say no.
Oh, yep.
I love the word no. That was life changing for me when I finally realized it's okay. Second, I'm a kind of person, and I'm sure people can relate to this, where people that I know and I love and I care about, if they are going through a situation that is very difficult, whether they're very sad or they're very mad or whatever, there's a lot of emotion. I have a tendency to carry that. Like they're really upset or they're going through a lot, and I almost feel guilty being happy.
Sure.
Because they're falling apart, and so I carry that emotion. I carry their burden as my own. And the feedback I was given was, I don't have to carry that burden. It's okay to continue living your happy life or in the situations that you're in, even if the person you are feeling for is not. You're not doing anything wrong.
Good. That's great. Okay, guys. Thanks for sharing.
Wow.
We're going deep, season 5.
Here we are.
Speaking
Finally.
of not doing anything wrong, right? All right, so we're in Mark 13, 28 to 37. Pastor Derek speaking. His sermon title is No One Knows the Day or the Hour. We kind of left off on this note a little bit. There's a lot of, I don't want to say repeating, but there's some straddling happening here. So we might dip into some things we've already talked about. But his main question is, do you live your life like Jesus is coming back? And I don't think he meant it in the 90s Christian culture
That's where I was.
vibes, that we
Left
talked
behind.
about last time. His big idea, what you believe about the future will have a dramatic impact on how you live now. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, so the initial, as he was preaching, the initial thought that went through my head was when he was talking about living in peace with people. Because I know, and I've probably said this on the podcast before, but if someone wrongs me and I cross that bridge of like, I trusted you, now I don't trust you, I don't often
Come back.
I don't walk back.
Yeah,
No.
right.
Like I'll wave from a distance, like to be cordially,
Yeah.
But there'll
I'm not,
always be a
I'm not
wall.
going back
You're not
over the
eating
A
bridge.
space around you that they can't
And
come
it
in.
honestly doesn't matter how close you are or have been in my life.
Yeah.
Like if there's a real sense of betrayal, like, okay, we're done.
Yeah.
So I was challenged listening to him just as I reflect on that journey and even the work that I've done in that journey, being self-aware enough to know the flaws of that.
Yeah.
There's a balance between guarding yourself and then re-entering relationships as well. So anyway, as he was talking, about that specifically in this sermon. That's where my brain was going, just sort of reflecting on, okay, if I'm to live at peace, and peace being this idea of wholeness, like things are put back in proper order, do I truly live in peace? I think when we think of peace, we think of it, the opposite of peace is conflict. And I think I've justified, well, I don't live in conflict with that person, so therefore
that's good.
I must live in peace. But
Interesting.
is there a sense of wholeness in that relationship? Anyway,
Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah.
some musings. I didn't come up with any conclusions.
No,
but
that's
where
okay.
my brain went.
Yeah.
I think I just thought about the probably the two most likely ways that I perceive that most Christians just think of Jesus' second coming is I think a large subset of the American church doesn't even think about it.
Right.
Because we're so comfortable. What do we need a savior
How
for?
could
What
it
do
get
we
better?
need?
How could it get better?
What do we
or
need?
Worse?
What do we need redemption from? This is great. I've got
Right.
all the desires I need, and I think it's in stark contrast to the majority of Christians in the world. But then I think there's another large subset of the American church that it's the way they talk about, so and so got elected, or such and such. Look at these hurricanes, or the way they frame it is the world's going to hell in a handbasket. Jesus has to come back and
Right.
save us all. But it's not like I'm going to be a part of this redeeming work until Jesus comes back and finishes the job. It's I'm just going to hunker down and hold up and just try to put my blinders on or whatever, or point the finger at the world, and Jesus is going to come back and make it all right. And it's just that approach that I perceive, it's not biblical, it's not correct, and it doesn't walk in the power of Jesus' redemption.
Yep.
It just retreats from the world.
I think it's really easy to be in a space right now where, like, for me, I catch myself a lot where I'm so sick of this world. I'm sick of the cruelty. I'm sick of the nastiness, all the anger, all the hate, it can be really overwhelming, and you'll get in a space where you're like, can you just come back now? Like, this world sucks. Like, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of the news. I'm sick of all the stuff that's going on. And then I have to pull back and be like, there's a lot of really good things going on that you should focus on as well, and stay awake, which we get into. But I think it's really like your point. I think it's really easy to get in a space where you're just sick of everything here, and you get out of focus, and you want him to come back just to end it.
And it's a valid place to be in. I think we should all be sick of the sin and all its infinite manifestations in this world and desire Jesus to come back.
But try to focus on all the good stuff that's happening too.
We can't stay there.
No.
Because there is a work that Jesus is doing in this world that we're called to be a part of as we prepare and stay ready and stay awake for his return.
Yep.
Right.
It's
Or we wouldn't be here.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
It's admittedly a hard balance to hold, though.
For sure.
It is.
And it's in that work that, it's in that waiting, or even in that exhaustion about the state of the world, that will produce inactivity in us. But what we're missing is actually the work that God wants to do in us. So there's a giftedness, there's a calling component, there's just a joy in all of that we miss when we hunker down, or when we just quietly quit, if you will, in God's kingdom. If we're using buzzwords, but because there's a sense in which a lot of Christians have just quietly quit. Like, we'll do the bare minimum, we'll come to church, we'll live at peace with
What's
other.
the point? The
We'll
world's
just
doomed.
wait it out.
We
Just wait it
can't,
out,
Until
like,
I
preach
either die
everybody.
or Jesus comes back. It's like, well, you
But
didn't
don't
read
you
the
want to
Bible.
know how Jesus actually made you?
Yeah.
Like, you're fearfully and wonderfully made, and to quietly quit in this life is to miss out on
the only life.
Imagine what you could do. Imagine what you could do. So that's the tragedy.
In his opening, my mind went to, and I hadn't thought about this until I read the sermon. We told, my husband and I told our son, let me rephrase this for the record. My husband and my son are going to get a lizard.
It's happening?
It's happening.
Are you getting a bearded dragon?
How big?
So, baby, to start.
Are you going to be a bearded dragon?
So we had decided he's getting a leopard gecko. Okay. So he's like, yes, because he wants one. He loves how they look. He thinks they're cool, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So we learned from this lady in doing research, oh no. If you want if you want a pet to have a relationship with, you want a bearded dragon. If you want a pet to look at, you want a leopard gecko. And I'm like, well, Dax isn't anything about looking at anything.
Yeah,
So that's not going to
He gets up
happen.
in everything.
Shit.
Yeah.
Playing hide and seek with
Yeah.
dragon
So I'm like, if he
this.
but if he wants to like put a leash on a thing and walk it around, like he needs a bearded dragon. If he wants
You
it to
do.
sit on his shoulder while he's reading,
harness
you know,
it
all
and
these things.
everything.
You're gonna be
So he's like, no. Even knowing that he wants the thing, whatever.
the leopard.
The leopard,
gecko.
the leopard gecko. We tell him we have to do more research because we just don't think that this is like the right thing or whatever. He switched his opinion he kept switching his opinion with us because he thought if he said the right thing, he would get the lizard that day. So he's like, oh yeah, he's cute. I like this one. And the bearded dragon that was like next to the other one. And I'm like, but remember, we're not getting one today. He's like, but if I pick this one, whatever. And so Dave and I are in an aisle like separate from him. I'm like, you better start talking to him about this because it's not happening, you know? And so, and it was just, I was thinking about this when I was reading the sermon, just like he's trying to make these choices that are like, if I make this choice right now, I'll get this thing right now.
Yeah.
And I don't have to worry about waiting. I don't have to wait till the Reptile Expo in 2 weeks. We're talking 2 weeks here. We're not talking like
you going to one?
years. So like it just made me think like so. And I didn't in that moment. I wasn't thinking, oh God, you're showing me something. But when I read the sermon, I was like, okay, yes, that I can definitely do. Where I'll just like want to take whatever's like right in front of me or deal with whatever's right in front of me. So I'm not like fully looking and anticipating the future all the
Missing
time.
what could be.
Missing what could be because I'm like this thing right here, right now. Let's do that.
Just to satisfy that urge.
Satisfy whatever it is.
Whatever
Yeah.
it is,
Yeah.
Accomplish something, earn something, get something.
The C.S. Lewis mud pies
Yes,
at the
exactly.
beach when you're missing the ocean in front of you. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Also,
that's
I'm
what I mean.
imagining you as a lizard mom.
Not having anything to do with it.
walking a bearded dragon.
Not
on a
having anything to
leash.
do with it.
This makes my
Bring it
soul sore.
My name is Danielle Suzanne Hartland. I am not having anything to do with any lizards.
I guarantee she has a lizard sticker on her computer very soon.
I absolutely will not.
It will happen.
Bumper sticker on the car. Lizard mom.
I am
got, like,
so
the
terrified.
two adults and the kid and the lizard.
I'm terrified. I got those stick figures. I will
Even if you
low-key-
don't want it, we're going to buy
I
it for
will
you.
low key be teaching Yoshi how to hunt lizards.
Yeah, it's gonna. And how long do you think it takes before that lizard is out of that cage and missing?
They grow fast, I guess. The bearded dragon ones.
Yeah, you're going to have some missing lizard cases
Yeah,
for sure.
it's gonna be
It's like
a
the
problem.
hamster in the ball, and the lid always falls off.
Anyway, guys, sorry.
Oh,
that was
man.
I didn't mean that to be so long.
It's a good illustration.
It
though.
really
it's
is.
a
Oh,
great
yeah.
parallel.
I mean,
yeah.
it's just
It's almost like we're like in our finite brains, we're so anxious or urgent about something, but God as the parent is like, well, you're never getting it today anyway.
right.
Like,
So what are we
We want the
doing?
anticipation to be over.
And we move targets, like we'll move. Oh, it doesn't have to be that. Maybe it could just be this. Maybe it could just be this. Like, and we like settle and settle and
Yes.
settle. What did he said like M&Ms and a $1,000 bill or something like that, right? Was his example? Yeah.
They would totally get the M&Ms.
100%. There's no question.
Totally.
Yeah. What was the thing he said to? Oh, what was the one question he said along these lines? I wonder if God doesn't want mankind to know exactly when Jesus is coming back because he wants every generation to live in expectation of it. That's kind of my takeaway, my big.
I don't know if I would want to know either.
It's the same thing as would you want to know when you're going to die?
No.
You think you do. You don't. Nobody wants to know that.
It's all you would think about.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to know when I would die.
I don't want to
No.
know when anybody dies.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's right. There's no X, Y, and Z before this happens. Otherwise, we'd probably get overly fixated. The only thing, and I think I mentioned this a few weeks ago when we had the last one I was in, but I mean Matthew 24:14, and Sarah even preached on this a little bit. The Mark passage. The only thing Jesus says is between now and the resurrection is, and the gospel of the kingdom will be proclaimed throughout the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. The only marching order that we have is all nations, all people, all tribes, all tongues will proclaim the gospel in some way, shape, or form, and then the end comes. The beauty in that, though, there's your mission.
Right.
There's your next. There's the driving goal, but there's no specifics for us to fixate on.
Right.
So we need to drive towards that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the mission, right? It's the
Right.
first point.
It's
We
the
need to
first
drive
point,
towards. We have our marching orders, but we're ultimately not in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
God's still the one who's going to do it. I think it's like God knows what he's doing or something. It's wild.
It's weird. It's weird when he does, yeah. Let's back up just a second. Lessons from the fig tree. Anybody? we're kind of circling around all this, but
Well, I love the metaphor or the illustration of when you see these things happen. Not that it's going to happen tomorrow, but
Right.
it's almost like it's a reminder of being ready.
yeah.
I think that's important. Not to like, oh, there's another earthquake. He's coming next
See,
week.
and that's like where that's where I get hung up. Like, how specific am I supposed to be looking for things? Like, specific things am I supposed to really be fixating on? Like, you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I mean, I would
Not much.
not much is what I would say.
So it's like,
Yeah.
And you're
this earthquake, or and I love how we're in a space too where everyone's like, well, the United States is on fire on one side of the country and then it's on ice on the other, and so the world is going to end. I'm like, well,
Yeah, because it all begins and ends with the United
Thank
States.
you. That is
Yeah.
what is that? That's exactly what I say. I'm like,
Yeah.
why are we doing this? Like,
Yeah.
and then I feel, am I not doing enough? Am I not looking enough? Am I not like researching enough? Like,
I will, in my opinion, when people come to me and they're like, so and so got elected, the fires in L.A., you know the end's coming. I just want to be like, is it?
I don't know.
Should
I
we
actually don't know.
Should we work through the different empires that have risen and fallen, and the
Right.
chaos in the world, and
Yeah.
the Holocaust, and the bubonic plague, and like, aren't those more like? It's not that.
yeah,
It
I
is
know
a
what
big
you're
deal,
saying.
but like, it's
I know.
not. Let's not get overly fixated on
Yep.
that.
Yeah.
We have a mission to do.
We have things we can fixate on that are much more enduring than
Correct.
Or and then you feel guilty. You're like, okay, am I too self-centered and focusing just in my bubble of the world that I'm supposed to be like in mission on? But then you start to feel guilty. Like, am I not doing enough outside of my? I feel like you just can easily spiral, and you just have to like knock it off. And
Yeah,
just,
I think even if
just-
it's ramping up, hypothetically,
Yeah.
even if it's ramping up, at very least it should serve as a reminder of the brokenness of the world.
Yeah.
That the world is not complete, it is not whole, and then it should point us back to our commission to be partners. And Derek talks about this, to be partners with God. Right? He chose to partner with us in the restoration of that which is broken.
Yeah.
I think it's plain and simple.
Yeah.
There was no mandate to fixate over the date or the time or to try and guess
Specific
or to,
events.
to figure this out. The mandate was the world is broken. I'm sending Jesus to save your soul so that you can partner with me and help and restore this thing. That's
And I'll be
broken.
back one day to tie this thing up. And
Yeah.
And when he says be ready, he doesn't mean be ready to be ready to know when it
right,
Yeah.
right.
right.
Got
it's not
it.
it's not
Yeah.
that kind of be ready.
Told you so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not be ready to be right. It's
Right,
just-
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just know that it's going to happen. And
Yeah.
okay.
Live that way.
I will
Yep.
say the beautiful irony in the, like reading the
Yeah.
fig tree. Like, so Sophia, my oldest, my 5-year-old, is suffice to say not a fan of winter and the snow, and so I think every day she's like, "How long is winter? I don't like. It's
Narnia.
too cold. It's too da da da." And then we're like, "Okay, what are the seasons?" Well, they're winter and spring and fall. And like she sings a song, and I'm like, "Okay, so spring is coming.
Cute.
It will come, but not now, isn't?" So, but it's just. But
She's ready for Narnia. She's ready for The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, probably.
Well, that
You probably
would be,
could read it to her.
Yeah.
5 could probably take
Yeah.
that. I
If
think
you
she-
read it, yeah. You could skip over some scary bits.
Yeah.
I could be-
She's ready for the metaphor. Anyway.
In any
Might-
case,
might help her
5-year-olds get to
process.
see.
You watch that.
You're lucky you're not in Narnia. Stop complaining, kid. The White Witch
Where's
will get
Aslan?
you.
The Witch will get you.
Or not the White Witch. That was White Walkers from... Never mind. On to the
Well,
next.
that's another. Well,
That's
winter's
another-
coming, girl. Like, it's here.
That's another way to look at it. Okay. 4 ways. We're talking about being ready. So 4 ways to live a ready life. We're circling around this one. I'll say the 4 and then let's just break down what stuck out to us. Live a life on mission. Live a life of purity. Live a life of helping those in need. And live a life of forgiveness.
Hi.
Hi.
For me, it was the second one, live a life of purity. I'm going to say this. I have slowed down tremendously over like the last couple years, but since my fitness journey in May, a lot of things I'm not able to do anymore. And I realized how much I was always distracting myself.
Oh, wow.
Like, I need to do fun things, or I need to do this, or I need to go see that, and I need to like bucket list, but you know. And now I've like just calmed down And I'm
You mean
just,
like entertainment activity kind of stuff?
yeah,
Okay.
like you just have to, it's a constant distraction, right? The drinking, the whatever. So as I have calmed down and now I'm just fixated on health, mentality, spiritual, like, and I'm at home a lot and like just doing a lot of like calming, like good things, you don't realize how much better you actually feel. So like you're running around trying to like distract yourself and do all these things because you think you're supposed to like always be doing stuff when actually he tells you to be still and like calm down, and you just feel so much better. So that tied into me a lot. Like, but you have to be careful because you can go too inward.
Sure.
Like you can rot too much in your house and like not be like doing other things, and you're only like fixated on yourself to get better. So you have to find a balance, but there's so much more like clarity. You're so much more clear-minded. Like you just feel
More awake, more ready,
right? Yes. That like it's just
physically and spiritually.
Yeah. So that
I
was
think
like me.
it's living a life of purity. I think it's a fantastic irony where some of the most obsessed people with Jesus is coming back after live some of the like least Christian lives. Like Jesus is coming back, but you're doing like you're choosing to like overemphasize these passages about Jesus, and you're ignoring all the rest of them. That like, what kind of a witness is that?
That's common, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time parsing between the living on mission and helping those in need, because I think those are, two sides of the same coin. But we had an opportunity to visit our old stomping grounds, Nicole and I, several times actually in the fall.
Yeah.
Just because there was, some funerals, so we went up to pay respects, and then there was a Christmas event. We got to go up. It was actually really cool. It was a Christmas event that when we were there, we got to start, and it's still going on now.
That's cool.
And it's a staple in the community.
That's
It's really neat to see. And just walking around as a spectator,
Oh, wow.
is
That's wild.
really, really cool too. But there's a sense in which, and I know this is not necessarily what you're asking, but it's more of a confessional piece than it is anything for me. There's a sense in which we did that really well in our last life, and I think we're really great at being part of a small town and community where we can kind of take the reins on something. And that's like, in this season of life, our kids are getting a little bit older, they're watching, that I'd love to reclaim a little bit. I actually think it's part of Nicole and I's superpower as a couple.
Yeah, cool.
Is to be able to invest in, on a missional front, to be able to invest in a community in an intentional way. So my word for this year, actually, not that everybody does words, my word for last year was clarity, and I think it achieved it. But this year is, I think I achieved it. How indecisive it is. I achieved it.
I wasn't laughing at the word. I was laughing at your
I
conclusion.
did achieve it.
Yeah.
I don't know why I deflected there, but is intentionality. And I think in some way, shape, or form, and it's intentional in every aspect of life, because, Marlo turned 8, and that did something weird in my brain. Like, now he's,
like a
8's one of those ages. So just intentional in all fronts.
Yeah, that's good.
And I think that is going to, at some point this year, be part of those conversations. Like, what does it look like to, and it's more, because Nicole and I are both evangelists at heart as well. Like, we love, I love the teaching and all that, but we love reaching into communities, but we just don't know what that looks like. So anyway, that's where, as Derek was preaching, I was, reflecting on life on mission. But again, it goes hand in hand with, in my opinion, living with, helping those in that are in need.
Yeah.
Well, being about God's business keeps you inherently ready and awake and on the lookout. But it also, I mean, if you're doing what God is calling you to do in the world, then you're not getting overly fixated on the things that don't need to, like, you don't need to fixate. You're not counting whatever the weeks past the last blood moon or whatever. But there's a being
56.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Being about God's business it keeps you awake without giving you, I don't know, you don't have the margin to get distracted by the many things that can. So if you're not about God's business or what he's called you to, go find it out and go jump into it.
Can we jump
Period.
back to the people in need?
Sure.
So I instantly go to a place where I'm like, okay, people need homelessness, right? Like,
Okay.
I don't know about anyone else, but like that's where you always go. Like people who are desperately in need
The
of
obvious needs.
the
yeah.
obvious needs. Is it safe to say that in a statement like this, people in need is a whole lot more than just that? It can be people who are in despair, people who are distraught, people who are sad, people who are going like who need to hear about Jesus, who are just being there for people in that you come across that are in need in some way, whether they have a home or don't have a home. Does that make sense? You see what I'm trying to
Yeah,
say?
absolutely.
Like, so I think we get fixated, at least I do. We get fixated on this space where when we hear people in need who need, we instantly are like, I have to help the homeless. I have to get a sleeping bag for EUMA. Like, it's like, no, if the person in front of you that God has put in front of you is really struggling in life and needs a confidant, that's a person in need.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, am I saying? Is that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
My
yeah,
brain-
it's all about restoration. So that can look
In the infinite ways.
right.
that-
Yeah,
Million
as you
different-
talk, my
bring it
brain
about.
instantly goes to like the Beatitudes in Matthew
Yeah.
5, Sermon on the Mount, where
good.
Jesus kind of flips the table and talks about, blessed are the brokenhearted
Mm-hmm.
and all those
Okay.
sorts of things. And so I think, 100%. I think a downfall of Christianity could be just to silo and isolate these to just singular,
Yep.
obvious needs. Like there's the beggar on the street.
Yep.
Obviously, we're not going to,
Right.
Right. You have to
negate
sponsor
those
a child
people.
a
Right,
certain way. You
yeah.
have to, like, there's these
Yes.
unspoken, I don't know what it is,
But has
Christian
your
social
friend-
contract
correct.
Yeah. Wow.
rules.
Yeah. Has your friend been struggling with depression
Right,
for
exactly.
a number
Yep,
of years? Like,
yep.
am I truly helping that individual, or even am I just buddying up, which could be helping in of
Yeah, I
itself?
mean, the most restorative thing you could do on a day is like sit and have a coffee with a person,
Yeah.
potentially. But it just depends
Yep.
what God puts in your path.
Correct.
You know,
Yeah. I'm reading John Maxwell's book, Good Leaders Ask Great Questions.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a great reminder of the power of asking questions.
Yeah,
And I think about that when as you're talking about that, like just if we had a bank of powerful questions that we knew, conversation-inducing questions that would pull out of people that we were close to, that made them feel valued and cared for, I think that would go a long
Yeah.
way. We don't have to be
Oh,
a
yeah.
leader to do that, but
no,
I think that would be really helpful.
that's good.
I'd say there are infinite ways that sin has wreaked destruction in this world and in people's hearts, and so there are infinite ways, infinite squared times 100 million
Ooh.
ways
Ooh, okay.
that Jesus can bring about restoration of sin, and in which He can use us. And so we should never box in the good work that God's calling us to do by getting sleeping bags. We absolutely should get sleeping
Yeah.
bags for the homeless, but
Yeah.
there are infinite ways that God might be calling you
For
to
someone in
bring
need.
restoration and redemption in His name. Step into it. Don't shy away from, and don't discount yourself for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I like what you're saying too, like about like the four of us will engage in this all different ways, not only because of what God has specifically called us to, but how He has built us. And so I appreciate that you're leaning into that. Just the idea of like, just do some work to figure out how God wired you, like you
Yeah.
were saying earlier, and that I think will open up those other paths where it's not. Yeah, maybe you do still do like
Sure.
you're saying, do
So
the
volunteer,
do the
you
things,
do things,
but
yes.
there are special things that I think God unlocks in each one of us that lead to whatever our little part of sewing stuff back up is.
Yeah.
100%.
And we've obviously got resources here, finding
Yeah.
calling classes, things, stuff like that coming out.
Yep.
A really helpful practice for me, I would even say in the last year, just as, clarity was my word, was to write down, and it doesn't need to be a list of 3 things, but
Yeah.
to start getting in the practice of writing down things that you would do regardless of being paid or not.
Oh,
So
that's cool. Yeah.
if you just think about those things in your life, what would you do if you could do anything?
Yeah.
Say you didn't even have a job. If you didn't have a job and you could do anything for the rest of your life and you would never receive a dime for it, what would some of those things be? And you might have a list of 10 to start off with,
Yeah.
15. Revisit that list and try
cool.
and narrow those things down. I narrowed it down to 3 for me. But it was just it was really great work. It was clarifying work. But as you do that type of work in your own life, it does start to like expose areas in your life that God may actually be saying, okay, well, hey,
Yeah.
step in. Why not? You got some time, step into it.
Yeah.
Might reveal the way God has wired
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Or you might realize, okay, I actually need to make a move here and and change something up.
That's
So
good.
it was just helpful for me.
Yeah, that's good.
That's cool.
When I think so, Pastor Derek would have probably felt remiss if he hadn't spoken about God's judgment toward the end of this message, and how things will kind of suss out at the end. I don't know what you guys thought about that section. I think the thing that jumped out to me was just the idea. I haven't thought about it in this way in a long time, but looking at the way it's hard to kind of imagine how God will judge people at the end, judge us at the end. That's because we have that like human lens. But then to just say like, okay, well, don't worry about that. Worry about how you judge people. And what if that was the standard that God held you to at the end? And obviously that isn't. There's like a righteous standard for all of this. But like that just messed me up for a good half hour. I was like, yeah, if someone had a recording of my thoughts, like interacting with certain people, and like, why did they do that? What the heck was that about? Whatever. Could be the most benign and also the most rude things ever. I don't know.
Not about me though.
No, please, no. You guys, no, never.
I've got a whole file.
You guys are grandfathered in. No, I would never want to be judged against my own opinions of other people and how they should behave. That would be. I wouldn't make it.
No, wow.
Yeah. Well, I'm perfect, so I'm good.
Well, I understand. That's why I'm only talking to these two.
Yeah.
It's our hearts that are deceitfully wicked above all things.
Yes.
I didn't say my body was physically perfect.
No.
My mind, on the other hand,
Pretty great. Pretty clear.
It is one of the
Pretty
hardest.
non-judge, a lot of clarity.
He thinks it's clear.
One of the hardest. I had a realization a few years ago about God's judgment, and it's either, whenever I get wronged, and it's either that person will bear the judgment that is due to them, that Jesus will administer, or Jesus bore it. In either case, it's not for me to administer it.
Right.
And it was just, and the worst is when it's a Christian too, and they wrong me, and I'm like, it's hard. Dang it. Because I know Jesus paid for that sin that they might not even admit, that they don't even know what they're doing. Maybe they do know what they're doing, and just to sit and like, it is so hard to rest in God's judgment.
I agree.
And then, but it's His.
And
the seat's too big, right? The seat's too big for us to fit on it.
Yeah.
It's rightfully His. And and I hate to have that flipped around on me but He's coming, and He will judge it, and He will judge it perfectly, and we will be standing with Jesus.
Yeah. And
trying to rest in that.
I want to be forgiven. Like if I wrong you, I want you to forgive me.
Right.
And I think obviously, I don't know, guys. I'm a mess. And I'm not like a necessarily unforgiving person, but like I'm the same. Like if it's like, you have that like righteous indignation or whatever it is, and like justice complex, I guess.
Yeah, which is a good thing to have, but it's just so hard not to apply it with a double standard and then to really rest that.
Yeah, one of them, Dan White, our buddy, Derek's buddy, but we're buddies, I guess. Yeah. Because Derek's buddies with them.
Buddies adjacent.
Yeah,
adjacent
buddies adjacent. Yeah, adjacent buddies. He had a Facebook post.
It felt so weird.
Like weirdly second grade. Like you said, you're adjacent buddy.
He kept saying it.
Adjacent buddy.
Adjacent buddies. Anyway, he had a quote that I thought was really great. It was particularly aimed at pastors, but I think as you were talking, I resonated with it again. It says, they don't teach you in seminary how to forgive congregants for the wounds inflicted on you that they'll never apologize for.
Oh, my word.
He said, it is vital to re-explore, reflect, and release in safety with others. If we do not do this regularly, we will build up anger, shame, and contempt in our body. And no matter how stoic or mind over matter you are, it will store up and leak out on others.
Amen.
And I just thought that was very powerful. I can resonate with that, with having been a pastor and being wronged by people, and they're like, they're never going to apologize for this.
They might not even know.
Yeah.
They
might not even be.
They may
not
honestly
even be
think
self-aware enough to know those things.
in their mind they think they had the right and it made sense to them and it was the right thing to do. To do and say what they said.
And even then, that's not for
Nope.
judgment to, but not you, Grace.
Yeah, it definitely applies to pastors. It definitely applies to just anyone in ministry, really. But just normal human relationships too.
But it it forces us, like you were saying, to do that because there's a sense in which we are then, again, a wrong is a wrong, and we shouldn't. I don't think we should negate that. But we have the tendency to even allow our own sinful self-righteousness to like creep up above that person too, and to place our standards on them too.
Totally.
It's complicated. It's
is.
really, really complicated. But I think being self-aware enough to know.
It's only complicated because we're sinful.
I know.
That's right, yeah.
But yeah,
You're trying to get me to say my verse? Is that
I
what you're
am.
trying to do?
I am. I'm pushing for it.
Let her rip.
This
You got to
season
get
5.
it in season 5.
We got to get it in.
But when we get wrapped up in those cycles of judgment, we don't forgive, like is one of the things that then all of a sudden it distracts us from helping those in need, from living on mission.
Yep.
And that's what, I mean, Satan is a deceiver. He's a distractor.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we're not ready and awake. We're tied up in this thing. Jesus is going to come knocking, ripping the heavens open like Derek kind of described, and we're not going to be ready. And
If you
that
didn't hear what
is
he
my
just said,
biggest fear.
rewind and go back and listen to that again. That was good.
The way he explained it.
Yes.
Yeah, and I
Just
think
said.
any
Easy when I say.
anything where Satan
blacked
can blacked out. Anything where Satan can be like, oh, that part of their heart's a little bit harder now.
Yep.
That part of their heart's a little bit harder now. And it's all those little little things. Yeah.
Yeah, that illustration of if you've got a crack in your wall, because we live in Erie and it's like 5 degrees right
Yeah.
now.
You have a crack in your foundation.
But no,
driveway.
if you have a
Do
crack in your wall, and it could be the slightest little hair crack, and then water gets in it, and that water
Yep.
turns to ice, and then after the
no
year,
good.
and then after the next year, and then next thing you know, you've got a foundation problem.
That's good.
Yeah, you're welcome.
That's really it's great. It's true. You don't want any of those ice dams in your heart or whatever they're called.
Oh, talk
we
about
have
ice
one. We
dams.
can
You
do
should
that
see my
all.
gutters right now. We might be forking out some cash. In
I
this
can't see
thing.
my mailbox.
What does that mean?
I can't see because I'm in Summit, and so we get real. The snow in my yard is higher than my mailbox.
Shifted real fast.
That's wow.
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 Well, why didn't you dig it out?
Where would I put it?
What do you mean? Where would you put
Wait,
it?
it's in the ground. Like just
I mean, you can get to it. Like the mail guy can get to it.
Sarah, are you judging him on your standards
Oh
right
my
now?
goodness.
Wow.
go out there and dig it out.
Dig it out, silly.
You come
But
by
I
and dig it out.
realized,
Come help somebody in need.
I thought you just weren't getting mail.
Go live on mission, Sarah. Go dig out his
Yeah,
mailbox.
send Ben with his huge plow to go get his mailbox free.
Oh, it's broke.
Oh gosh! As usual, we spiraled into nothing.
We started strong. We started really
started
strong.
real
We
strong.
had good moments.
I think it was great.
It was great.
So last
Hey,
2
yeah.
minutes.
So think through these 4 ways to live a ready life, and maybe just spend some time thinking about which of those steps the Holy Spirit highlighted for you, and talk to God about that this week. All right, that's it. So you can go to whoisgrace.com/Mark for resources. You can also. I said I would delete this from the outro.
Let it be this season.
Here's
where
what
you
I want to
actually-
ask all of our readers, or listeners, whatever you are,
Readers.
whatever you are.
Transcript?
Submit to us names for Danielle's son's lizard. We want to hear what you want to name
there we go.
Dax's lizard. Please tell us.
And we have to ask at the beginning of every one, have you got it yet?
Season 5, the lizard episodes. Yeah.
The
Because
lizard
we
has
want to
no
know.
name.
We were going to be invested.
The lizard does have no name. All right, yeah. But really, you can send us questions too, and disagree with us, all the things.
Oh, I will say, and
Yeah.
maybe the person that didn't like that or put a thumbs, we got our first thumbs down on the last episode.
We're legit.
On
Where they have sex.
it was
the
the
last
end.
episode.
No, it was the end times.
It was not a good episode.
It was like I think we got. I don't know how many likes
Yeah.
we got, but it wasn't 100%. Usually, when you look
Ooh.
at the YouTube channel, you see 100% likes, 100% likes.
gonna
This
hate,
was like
hate.
we might have got more now that I'm thinking about it. I think it was like 66% likes. So that means,
Guys, tell us about it. We want to talk to you about this stuff.
Come on now.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that was you. Name yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Because I
Come
can't
on
see
now.
who it
Or
was.
don't make up a fake Gmail and send us an
Yep.
email. It's fine. We don't need know who you are.
Not the same.
Anywho, all right. Thanks for joining us. We will, if you decide to come back, we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Bye.